It's actually the people around the whole world
Oh,
logging onto Netflix last night to find not one, not two, but 3 episodes from the new Harry and Meghan documentary. And after years of speculation, we got to hear their side of the story, their relationship, and also what happens beyond the tabloid.
But for me, the problem, I think, is that I'm quite emotionally available. And I like that about who I am. And I find some of the places I go to, people I meet are having a really tricky time. That helps me put my own life into perspective.
The palace did not whisper this time. It spoke with the cold finality of a door locking from the inside. Meghan's final appeal reached William, and by the next morning the answer was clear. No. Not delayed, not softened, not passed to advisors. Just denied! Inside the royal household, that single decision landed like a verdict many had expected but still dreaded. Meghan read the denial twice, and the room suddenly felt still. Her final private request, asking for restored royal access, limited recognition at certain family events, and a path back into official palace communication, had not been left to lawyers or palace staff. William answered it himself, and that made all the difference. This was never just a family disagreement. Royal access meant entering official spaces and being recognized within the working royal circle. Official palace communication was the formal system used for important messages inside the monarchy. Meghan understood exactly what that meant. She had not been ignored. She had been refused. William sat alone before the decision left his desk. For a brief moment, the future king looked less like a man taking control and more like a brother carrying a heavy burden. He knew Meghan would feel hurt. He knew Harry would feel trapped. But he also believed the palace had reached a limit it would not cross again. The appeal asked for a door to reopen. His answer built a wall. When William placed the signed response on the desk, the gesture was quiet, but its impact was huge. The statement offered no warmth, no personal comfort, and no promise of another review. It simply said the matter would receive no further consideration, and everything changed after that. A senior aide noticed the wording and froze for a moment. He had read plenty of firm palace statements before, but this one felt final. No further consideration did not mean a delay. It meant the door was shut. It meant any future request would already be rejected before it even began. Meghan stared at those words until they seemed heavier than the paper itself. While William carried the burden from one side, Harry was left caught between anger and heartbreak. Charles had to face the painful reality that the family peace he hoped for was slipping away. Catherine understood why the line had been drawn around her children, and she also knew that every boundary comes with a price. Once the decision left William's desk, everyone connected to Meghan's appeal had to deal with what had changed. Behind the formal palace language were real people with real emotions. Meghan was not simply reading a refusal. William was not simply delivering one. Harry was not just watching from the sidelines, and Charles was not just receiving an update. A family conflict had become official palace policy, and a personal request had turned into a defining moment. Meghan had not asked for a full return. She wanted limited access to palace communication and recognition at selected family events. Not her old rollback, but enough to show the door had not been locked forever. Inside the monarchy, that kind of recognition carries real meaning. It tells the public who is still considered part of the circle. Seeing that William had personally refused the request made the decision feel even more significant, and he carried that choice like a heavy weight on his shoulders. The prince believed he was protecting the monarchy's future, but he also knew the decision would deeply affect Meghan and, through her, Harry. He was no longer choosing between kindness and firmness. He was choosing between family emotions and royal stability. In his view, every exception could create new pressure, and every private request could quickly become a public issue. Harry understood that reality, even if he struggled to accept it. He felt caught between Meghan's disappointment and the fact that his brother's answer seemed final. He wanted to stand by her, but he also knew the palace no longer revolved around what he wanted. Charles read the summary in silence. He slowly lowered the paper, looking weighed down by both his role as a father and his duty as king. Neither responsibility brought him any peace. Catherine saw the situation differently. She believed William's decision would shape not only Meghan's future, but also the boundaries protecting their children from growing public pressure. Camilla quietly watched the room. The Queen Consort sensed what others were only beginning to realize. William's position had become firm. He could feel sadness. He could carry regret. But he was not going to change course. The silence after the summary spoke louder than any speech. Meghan had hoped for a small path back, but that path now appeared closed. Harry was left facing frustration and sadness, while Charles could only watch as duty outweighed family ties. Catherine saw the personal cost. Camilla noticed the shift, and the palace felt the impact of a decision that changed everything. But before the monarchy reached this point, before William's no became final, there was one reported private incident that, according to this account, changed everything. To understand why William refused the request, attention shifted back to a quiet moment when trust was said to have broken down. Every royal controversy seems to have one small moment that later takes on much bigger meaning. In this version of events, that moment happened weeks earlier during a private reception linked to a children's charity. What was meant to stay behind closed doors reportedly reached the wrong people, changing how the situation was viewed. From then on, the palace was said to see less hope for reconciliation and more potential risk. Meghan reportedly arrived, believing the event could show she still had a place on the edge of royal life. Children's charity events carry special importance because they connect public service, family image, and the future of the monarchy. Catherine was given a central role, highlighting her position in future family-focused work, and Meghan reportedly questioned why she remained outside that circle. According to the account, Meghan privately asked a palace aide why Catherine was being protected, promoted, and placed at the centre while she was not. She also reportedly questioned whether William's office was intentionally keeping her away from royal events involving the Wales children. That question immediately raised concerns because George, Charlotte, and Louis are future heirs whose public roles are carefully protected. The aide later documented the conversation in a formal reception report used to record sensitive matters for senior officials. The report did not make headlines, but it created a written record. When Catherine was later told about the conversation, she reportedly listened quietly. She made no dramatic reaction, but her silence spoke volumes. The princess saw the situation differently. To her, it was no longer just about Meghan seeking recognition. It had become about protecting the boundary around her children from a dispute they had never chosen to be part of. William was later briefed on the same account. After hearing it, he reportedly made his position clear. Private family boundaries, in his view, were no longer open for debate. One phrase was added to the record: continued pressure around family access. According to this account, those words shifted the focus from reconciliation to protection. William no longer believed the request could simply be accommodated. He saw a pattern he felt needed to stop. Meghan wanted the door reopened, but William believed that door now reached too close to Catherine, the children, and the future of the monarchy. Once he connected those events to the final appeal, his decision was made. Later, Meghan wanted to discuss the matter face-to-face. The meeting took place in a private palace room, where important conversations can influence official decisions before anything becomes public. Meghan arrived expecting there might still be room for discussion. William came believing the outcome would not change. Only one senior aide waited outside, making the meeting personal but carefully managed. Meghan asked why there was no path back. She spoke about family recognition, selected occasions, and what she saw as basic respect after years of distance. As the conversation continued, it became clear she was not hearing the answers she hoped for. William listened but did not change his position. He said trust could not be rebuilt through requests alone if important boundaries had already been crossed. In his view, the monarchy depends not only on family ties but also on maintaining confidence in its rules and responsibilities. Every decision carried weight. William believed that if Meghan's request was approved after private pressure, future boundaries could be challenged the same way. He chose his words carefully, knowing one careless sentence could create even more tension. Meghan made one final argument, asking why recognition at family occasions had become impossible. According to this account, the tone shifted when the discussion touched on the Wales children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, whose privacy and future roles William and Catherine are determined to protect. Meghan noticed the change immediately. William did not raise his voice, but his expression became noticeably firmer. Then the meeting reached its turning point. William slowly set down his pen and said the appeal was denied, not postponed. That quiet gesture carried more weight than an angry exchange. Meghan fell silent. A postponement would have left room for hope. A denial signaled that, in his view, the matter was closed. William also explained that any future contact would go through formal palace channels rather than personal requests. Meghan had hoped for a personal answer, but instead received an official decision. As she left the room, the focus shifted from whether William had authority to how firmly he was now exercising it. Inside the palace, authority is often shown through paperwork, careful wording, and official procedures rather than dramatic moments. After the meeting, William's office took control of the appeal file, signaling where responsibility now rested. The file included the request, responses, and internal notes used by senior officials to guide decisions. Because the request involved family access, royal operations, and official protocol, William chose not to leave the matter unresolved. Charles was informed of the outcome, but according to this account, the final decision remained with William. The king read the final wording and lowered his eyes, understanding the significance of the decision. Another formal line had been crossed, and this time a father's feelings could not outweigh royal duty. Charles had hoped that time and silence might ease old divisions, but the document in front of him suggested otherwise. According to this account, William had not only refused Meghan's request, but also signalled that the monarchy's future would not be shaped by past family conflicts. Catherine watched William after the meeting, but saw no sense of triumph. Instead, she saw exhaustion behind his calm expression. She understood why he believed the decision was necessary. To her, the issue had grown beyond one request for recognition. It had become about protecting the Wales family and preventing private disputes from affecting the next generation. She knew that standing by William also meant accepting that he would face much of the criticism. The palace legal team then reviewed the next steps. Their role was to ensure official decisions were properly documented and difficult to challenge. According to this account, any future communication from Meghan would have to go through restricted official channels. The appeal was also marked closed, meaning it could not be reconsidered without William's approval. When Harry learned of the decision, the emotional impact was immediate. He did not need an official announcement to understand what had happened. He saw it in Meghan's expression before she said a word. Then came the message. The appeal had been denied, the decision was final, and there was no path back. In that moment, he was not thinking as a prince, but as a husband watching another connection to his former royal life disappear. Meghan told Harry that William had denied her final appeal, and the words hung heavily between them. The request had asked for limited access to royal communication and recognition at selected family occasions. According to this account, it was about more than status. It was about whether she could still have any official connection to the royal family. Harry immediately understood what the decision meant. If Meghan's request was refused, it reinforced the distance between them and the institution they had left behind. She felt hurt before she felt angry. A decision from an unnamed palace office might have seemed less personal, but this one had reportedly come directly from William, making it much harder to accept. Harry saw the disappointment on her face. His first reaction was anger, but it quickly turned into silence. He knew his brother well enough to recognize the difference between an emotional response and a carefully considered decision. In his view, William had weighed the consequences and still chosen to say no. Hoping there was still another path, Harry contacted a palace source who had helped in the past. This time there was no response. According to this account, that silence suggested new communication restrictions were already in place, with messages being filtered before reaching senior royals. Meghan watched him try again, only to be met with the same result. Harry also waited for some sign from Charles. He hoped for a private message or some indication that his father might intervene. None came. To him, the king's silence was especially painful because it suggested the decision would stand. Meghan reached the same conclusion, and the atmosphere between them grew even heavier. One final conversation between the brothers still remained. Before the public could react, Harry and William reportedly spoke without palace officials or formal statements between them. Harry reached out directly because he no longer trusted official palace channels to carry the message he wanted to send. The discussion was not marked by shouting. Instead, it was defined by silence, finality, and two brothers facing how far apart they had grown. Harry wanted none of the formal process. He wanted to speak to his brother. According to this account, he asked whether Meghan's denied appeal could be reconsidered for the sake of family rather than the institution. To him, the monarchy had already cost them enough. William listened but did not give the answer Harry hoped for. He reportedly said the appeal would not be reopened because family ties could not override the consequences of what had happened. Harry struggled to keep his composure. He asked if there was truly nothing left between them, and the anger in his voice gave way to sadness. William paused before replying. The silence suggested he did not take the decision lightly. According to this version of events, he believed that caring for someone did not remove responsibility. Family bonds, he said, could not erase damaged trust. William then explained that the decision was also about protecting Catherine and the Wales children from renewed pressure. In his view, Catherine's role and the future of George, Charlotte, and Louis made those boundaries especially important. Harry realised the appeal was no longer being seen as just a personal request, but as something William believed could affect the next generation. Harry fell silent. He began to see that, whether he agreed or not, William viewed the decision as protecting the future of the monarchy rather than settling a personal score. The conversation ended without either brother changing the other's mind, leaving both on very different paths. According to this account, news of the decision reached the public soon afterward. By breakfast, headlines were everywhere, and many people reacted with surprise while others said they had expected it. One front page summed up the moment with a simple message: no way back. Whether seen as a family dispute or a royal decision, the story quickly became one of the biggest topics in the country. According to this account, royal stories become historic, not only because of palace decisions, but because of how the public interprets them. Newspapers reportedly showed Meghan with a serious expression, William looking firm, and a message many readers saw as unmistakable. To them, William had not simply rejected a request. He had drawn a line everyone could see. One morning broadcaster reportedly described it as the clearest sign yet that William's era was already taking shape. That comment quickly turned a private family dispute into a national conversation. Supporters of Meghan criticised the decision, arguing that she had asked for limited recognition but received a final refusal instead. Others defended William, saying he was setting clear boundaries after years of uncertainty. In their view, access to the monarchy could not be restored through private pressure. The debate was no longer just about Meghan. It had become a wider discussion about whether the monarchy should emphasise forgiveness or protecting its long-term stability. Outside Buckingham Palace, small groups gathered and shared their opinions. Some believed Harry would never accept the outcome, while others felt Charles should have become more involved before the issue grew so public. A brief palace statement reportedly confirmed that any future requests would go through formal channels rather than personal appeals. By the end of the day, William had become the central figure in the story. Meghan was widely portrayed as facing a closed door, Charles was criticised for his silence, and Harry remained caught between his family and the institution he had once called home. Beyond the headlines, the biggest question was not about public opinion. It was about what this decision said about the monarchy itself. When the attention settled, one question remained inside the palace. What had this refusal truly cost? According to this account, Meghan's final appeal failed not because of a single rejected document, but because the institution had changed. William had changed. Harry had changed. For years, the monarchy was often seen as leaving doors partly open in hopes that time could ease old conflicts. This time, that door was fully closed. Meghan's request sought limited access, selected family recognition, and a controlled way to reconnect with palace life. In this version of events, the refusal signaled that those options would not be available through private appeals or personal pressure. The decision had become a firm boundary rather than a temporary setback. William, however, was not portrayed as celebrating the outcome. His decision reflected what he believed was necessary for the monarchy's long-term stability. From his perspective, unclear boundaries created more conflict, while firm rules protected the institution, even when they came at a personal cost. Harry was left facing the reality that the royal world he once knew was no longer waiting for his return. Charles remained publicly silent, and many interpreted that silence as acceptance of the decision. According to this account, the Crown's responsibilities had taken priority over personal feelings, marking another turning point in the family's ongoing story. According to this account, Charles may have felt the loss as a father, but as monarch, he did not reverse the course William had chosen for the future of the royal family. Catherine's quiet support beside the prince was presented as reflecting what the decision was meant to protect. Not revenge, pride, or cruelty, but the well-being of George, Charlotte, and Louis, and the future they represent. In this version of events, the outcome was clear. Meghan's appeal had ended. William's authority had grown stronger. Harry's separation had deepened. Charles remained silent, while Catherine stood beside the future of the monarchy. The message was that forgiveness may remain personal, but official access follows the institution's rules. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.